Hello and welcome to the Imaging Wire Show. My name is Brian Casey. I'm managing editor of the Imaging Wire. We've got a great episode for you today. Our topic is new developments in radiology reporting, and our guests are Jason Mercieca. He is head of research and development at Kylo Medical, and Dieter Smith. He is clinical content specialist also at Kylo Medical. Jason and Dieter, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Yeah. So, Jason, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do there at Kylo?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my role is the head of research and development. So I started out as just a developer at Kylo Medical, and over the years sort of grown into this role. And generally, I'm in charge of sort of the direction that the technology is taking and understanding where we can go with all of that.
All right, very good. Dieter, how about you?
My background's actually initially as a clinician, an ultrasound scanner, and I work for Kylo Medical, particularly in the clinical content development of the worksheets and reports that we provide and assisting clients in shaping that content. I also assist with implementation and integration of our product with new clients, and I guess I would say optimization with existing clients from a clinical perspective. Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Well, it's great to have both of you with us. So we talked to Rob Newman from Kylo a few months ago, but I guess you guys are going to give us an update on the company and kind of what you've been up to. So Jason, can you tell us a little bit about Kylo, what exactly you guys do?
Yeah, so Kylo Medical, we design solutions for the radiology workflow. We're a software company, so we're always looking at the technology that we can use to improve that workflow. The company was founded about 12 years ago, and I started about 10 years ago. I was actually employee number 4. So when I started, we were across just a few small sites in Australia, and I've been very lucky to help the team and the company grow to a significant number of sites across 5 different countries. So our head office is in Melbourne in Australia, and we also have an office in Calgary in Canada, and they manage our North American operations. So the core focus for the company is better outcomes for all, and we keep that at the heart of everything that we do. So we want to make things faster, more efficient, and just generally better for everyone across the radiology workflow, including the tech, the radiologists, and especially the patient.
All right, excellent. So Kylo does something, you guys do focus on radiology reporting, which is the process where the radiologist is, dictating results and it's going into a report that's going to a referring physician. And your technology is based on something called Synoptic Reporting. Dieter, can you talk a little bit about what exactly that is?
Yeah, sure. So our product, because it is I guess for the radiologist perspective, it is a preliminary report generator. And a lot of our product focuses on consistency of clinical content and approach. So things like structured reporting or synoptic reporting obviously lend themselves to naturally how our product works, where we provide a preliminary report that has a consistent structure. So, for the purposes of tracking or, consistency for referrers that are reading the report, there is similarity and trackability in the reports and consistency in the approach. So our product does generally lend itself to the concepts of structured reporting or synoptic reporting, which synoptic reporting to me is kind of a little bit more data driven, lots of numbers based and database reporting instead of a pure prose report. But our product can output something that's in between, or it can output something that is very, data-y, synoptic. It's capable of doing either or. But I think for me, the end goal is trying to make something that's consistent and is quality for the patient and the referrers to understand.
So the idea is, I guess in the old days of radiology, every radiologist had their own style when they were dictating prose reports. And that can probably be a little frustrating when you're a referring physician getting these reports coming in that
Yes.
all have different styles. And so you guys kind of maybe add some structure to that process.
Yeah, so even for myself, as a sonographer, I found, before structured reporting, like following up different reports from different orders, the pancreas, sometimes is at the top, sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes it's in a jumble of prose. And yeah, I found, even just personally for me as a clinician, structured reporting to be beneficial, especially for following up on patients. So we output to a more consistent report, as opposed to, lots of different little, adjustments or little inflections or idiosyncrasies that you might find if you're just in a sort of a purely prose typist, classic radiology kind of setup.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful. So Kylo, my understanding is Kylo got its start in ultrasound, and now you're expanding out and supporting all of radiology now?
Yeah. So, I unlike Jason, I unfortunately have not been here for the longest time. I've been for a few years, but I was actually a user and a client before I worked at Kylo, because in Australia the product has a lot of wide use. But essentially, our co-founders and the OGs of the product noticed that, okay, yeah, in ultrasound there's a data concept from the machine, but there's also a lot of tech input. So that was initially kind of targeted because you could kind of get the best of both worlds: the clinical input from the technologist, and then the pure data and measurements from the machine. And streamline that process in such a much more efficient way than paper. But it sort of became apparent at a certain point that, well, hang on, as long as there's a data set and our product can pull that data, why don't we expand into other modalities? So we initially started with, I believe, BMD, which is obviously very neural and database. And we've also done some work with calcium scoring for CT. And essentially we have this philosophy of vendor neutrality. So we will look at any data set that we can possibly grab, pass through our systems, and then come up with a preliminary report. So we're saving the radiologists from the kind of drudgery of just purely dictating out numbers and data that's already been captured. So that's the philosophy of our company. Ultrasound is where we started, and it's still a big piece of it. But again, anything that we can grab, we'll grab, and to make radiologists' lives easier. Yeah.
Very good. So my understanding is the flagship product is called Kylo Flow. Jason, can you talk a little bit about Kylo Flow and when it was launched and some background behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Dita said, we quickly realized that there was a much larger opportunity to improve the workflows than just sticking to ultrasound. Another thing that we noticed in the past couple of years is a more of a transition towards the cloud. So we were finding, 10 years ago when I started, there was a lot of hesitancy towards, especially putting patient data in the cloud. It's a bit worrying from a security perspective, but we've seen in recent years a lot more of a push towards that. So the combination of trying to expand into more modalities than just ultrasound, as well as a push towards more availability in the sense of cloud, gave birth to Kylo Flow. It was in development for about 4 years, and we launched it late last year, and it's been growing ever since.
Excellent. What kind of feedback are you getting from Kylo Flow users?
I'll answer that one. I'm a user myself, but I certainly, I have an anecdote I'd like to kind of share. Like when a radiologist I was working with, when we integrated the product initially, and they were doing their obstetrics reporting, And using our product and platform, the efficiency boost was exponential. And, because again, like as I was saying earlier, all that numerical data, all that repetitious data that's already been taken care of is there. And ideally, a radiologist, maybe they'll have to do a conclusion, quickly synthesize that information, and then the report's done. And he said to me, you've literally just saved me hours of work. And now I can use that mental energy to focus on my interventional work, to focus on, maybe those tricky oncology cases, that are really, really demanding of the radiologist's time and brain power. And I'm not spending my time, purely as a transcriber. So that's like a story I always like to tell. And I think it's generally for the radiologist, that's the benefit and that's the feedback, that we get with our product.
So the benefits that you're seeing, Dieter, are that radiologists are working more efficiently and it's kind of speeding up their workflow?
Yeah, speeding up their workflow. For a technologist too, there's plenty of benefits. It speeds up my workflow as a sonographer. It is, like I said, it is just a streamlining of a process that for many years through paper and typists is, the information passes between 4 or 5 different sources. And this just kind of cuts through all that and you can get a verified report out so much quicker.
That's awesome. So Jason, how does Kylo Flow work with existing systems that radiology practice might have, like a PACS or a RIS?
Yeah, there's a lot of smarts behind the scenes, and we always try and tightly integrate with the existing systems. So for Kylo Flow's purposes, we can take data in from any of those systems. So things like patient data in the EMR or RIS, measurements from the modalities or from PACS, as Dieter was talking about, user input on a worksheet, or even things like input from an AI solution. We can take all of that into Kylo Flow, and then the result of that is that interim report that we've been discussing. So in terms of integrating in, we can pull a lot of data in, and then we also integrate on the way out. So we can send the worksheet, we can send drawings, we can send graphs. They can go to the EMR, RIS, PACS. The report that we generate can go to various systems, including the voice recognition system that you might be using at the moment. So a key part of all that is trying to open the doors, not sort of close you in on a specific software. It keeps you in your existing system with just an extra layer on top of it.
Very good. So Kylo Flow is the reporting solution that you have. Now you've got another product called Kyoh Hub. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Kyoh Hub is our healthcare interoperability broker, and try saying that 3 times fast, but it's essentially what powers those integrations behind the scenes that I was talking about. So at its core, it will take data out of one system. It can translate, manipulate, transform that data and send it to another system. So it's really sort of that glue that holds everything together and allows us to be agnostic and interoperable.
Great. What are some of the use cases for it?
Yeah, so a really good example of the use case of that would be teleradiology. So in the space of teleradiology, we have a lot of clients that report for a different radiology practice. So for example, maybe a private site might report public hospital cases. And the big problem with that is that obviously the public hospital system has its own RIS and PACS, etc., or EMR, and the private clinic has its own RIS, PACS, etc. They can be completely different vendors, completely separate from each other. The public hospital has all of the images, referrals, prior data that the private clinic needs to report on. And then when the report is reported, how do you get it back to the public system? So what Kyoh Hub can do is take all of the data out of the public system, pop it into that private clinic. Then the radiologist at that private clinic will have access to all the data in their own system that they're used to. So it will appear as if it was just scanned at their own clinic. They'll be able to report it using the voice recognition or whatever system they currently use. Again, it appears as if it's been any other study that they're used to. And then the amazing thing is that once the report is completed, we can then send that back to the public system. So you have two completely separate systems, and the users in each system would be completely unaware that the other system exists, and realistically even unaware that Kylo Hub itself exists. But it is really what powers this entire integration.
Awesome. So, so much of radiology is talking about AI right now. Is there a role for AI in what you guys do there at Kylo Medical?
Yeah, so I think that really ties into the power we have with all these integrations. So it really allows us to create sort of novel and innovative solutions because of how integrated we are with all these systems. An example of that might be an AI program might output something like a list of lesions. So it might say lesion 1 measures blah, lesion 2 measures blah. But then for the radiologist, you then get in your voice recognition software and you need to dictate that. You need to say lesion 1 measures, lesion 2 measures. And it's just, as Dita was saying before, it's repeating data that we already have. So something that we can do with our tight integration and the ability to generate that interim report is take the output from the AI and actually create that report for you. Pop that in your existing voice recognition system, and hopefully all you need to do is click sign.
Very good. So we've been talking a lot about radiologists, and Dieter, you're a sonographer by training. What are some of the benefits for technologists and sonographers from Kylo's products?
It's going to be hard to answer this question succinctly because there are quite a few. So off the bat, there's obviously, if I take a series of measurements in my ultrasound machine, I can have those pre-filled in my digital worksheet. So there's already an efficiency gain from there. Because the worksheet is digital, you can have numerous cheat sheets or hyperlinks to protocols or reference ranges or things like that. So if I ever need to cross-reference or check anything, it's all in the worksheet for me. The worksheets per worksheet can have their own native clinical logics. So if a measurement's out of range, it highlights, and they have a lot of like contextual choices. So if you say yes to pathology A, the system goes, well, okay, if you've said yes to that, please answer these kind of 3 questions. So it's a speed improvement. You get some clinical assistance as well. And also even simple things like compliance, like we have this concept called stops, where if you go to send a worksheet and you haven't answered a question, you can have a warning saying, hey, you need to answer this, or it's recommended that you do. Or there are other things that are mandatory. So it's like, you can't actually send this out until you answer this clinical question. And so what that means is, back in the day with paper, if I forgot to check a box or something, the radiologist isn't, calling me up and chasing me and say, oh, what do you mean by this? Or I can't read your handwriting, Dieter, it's too messy. It eliminates a lot of that as well. So like I said, it's speed and I guess also just clinical assistance as well. And then, and what that means is I'm able to generate a preliminary report that should be ideally pretty close to the final product for the radiologist. Even the other day, I had a DVT case. Patient had deep vein thrombosis. As they were getting their pants back on and getting changed, the worksheet's ready, the preliminary report's ready. The doctor quickly reviews it, signs off. I can give them the report as they're walking out of practice. So whether they go back to their referring physician or if they have to go straight to hospital, they've got that report almost, instantaneously. And they can go to the next place they need to go to get better. So, yeah.
Peter, what do you think the clinical impact is of being able to turn these reports around so much faster and reducing all the friction that from someone not being able to read somebody else's handwriting. What's the clinical impact of that?
I think it's just, the words that sort of keep coming up when we discuss this is like, it's streamlining, it's more efficient, it's faster. In the example, that I just told you, in an urgent case, that's when you want to be able to get the report out quickly. And it's just a no-brainer with our product for those kind of situations. And it's an efficiency booster, but because I have the clinical background, and we have this thing called a content designer, where we design the worksheets, we design the reports. The product is not just a big efficiency booster, it's a clinical governance tool as well for a client. So yeah, again, there's these little clinical assists that you can get per worksheet, per type of case from the product. And that's kind of what my specialty and my passion is about the product.
Very good. So Jason, research and analytics are becoming so important in radiology, and we're finding that radiology can be fed in to help, do things like pharma development and all that kind of stuff. How do Kylo's solutions support research and analytics?
Yeah, so as we're discussing, the original implementation of this, or the original purpose, was to create that interim report. But we've had a lot of clinicians actually request structured data rather than that report that you get at the end. So we can actually make the data that we're capturing available for the users as well as that interim report. And Dita, you might want to comment on that a little bit further.
Yeah, so it's quite exciting. If you think about it, with our what Jason was saying earlier, right? If you try to research based off radiologist reports with no structured reporting, it's quite an onerous task to scrub through. Even with AI or machine assistance, it's quite an onerous task to kind of like track and see what's going on. But what we have with the digital worksheets, for example, let's say a pelvic ultrasound, we have a control on there that, is a yes/no question to an ovarian lesion. So if you've used our product, say, for a year, the data is all there on the amount of times somebody has said right ovary lesion, yes. That has all been captured in our database and can be pulled from our database. So, and it could be as kind of macro or as micro as you like. It could be, okay, well, how many right ovarian lesions? How many left? How many of them were classified as dermoids? And because the data is being captured in this kind of worksheet stage rather than after the fact from the report, it is a bit more, I guess, kind of pure and data-y, and therefore easier to track and trend and query. So I'm quite excited for the possibilities for research, for QA that we have, because we have all that digital data captured. And on paper, that's all wasted data, that's all lost information. Try to track that through paper worksheets would be, again, impossible.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. So RSNA is coming up in just a couple weeks, hard to believe. What can we look forward to seeing from Kylo Medical at RSNA?
Well, you can look forward to seeing us, Brian. But seriously, we're very excited to sort of demonstrate all these new things that we've been discussing during this talk. And yeah, there's a lot of exciting things to show off. So a lot of improvements there. Dita, is there anything else that you'd like to throw in?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting, some existing clients and some potential clients, and kind of sharing the story of Sonar Review and the benefits of structured reporting, and all the advantages that it's created in my life and my practice, and sharing that with the folks at RSNA. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, great, same here. All right, well, some great discussion today. I'd like to thank Jason Mercieca and Dieter Smith of Kylo Medical for being with us. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Signing off for the Imaging Wire, my name is Brian Casey.